everybody, welcome to Caketastic Cakes. It's Jen and I'm going to show you how to make a Stranger Things cake featuring a gumpaste demogorgon. Now we're going to begin with our demogorgon, and before we begin with our demogorgon, I'm just going to say if you need any supplies or tools, if you check in the description below, you might be able to find links that can help you out. Alright, to begin our demogorgon, I'm going to start with his torso. This guy, as you know from Stranger Things, is kind of like very skeletal almost, but he has his muscles on top like he was skinned. And so that's kind of the look I'm going for here. I gave him a very tapered waist, as you see, and I'm trying right now to use the back of my veining tool to really accentuate his rib cage and the pattern of the stomach muscles and then the chest muscles and everything. So I'm making a seam kind of down the middle of the stomach part where it goes up and flares out to the chest. I made kind of a letter Y in the center there. I'm using the back of my knife to make very heavy indentations to separate out like big chunks of ribs. Like if you look at him, this isn't perfectly accurate, of course, if you do look at him, but I tried. But you'll see that he's got like kind of sections of ribs that stay together more and big dips here and there. So he's very uneven and very, like I said, like it's skin tight. So really accentuate your lines, make them heavy, make them deep, don't hold back. I'm kind of pushing in a little bit in the center of that Y there. Once again, making more lines to show muscles and skin stretching kind of an effect. I'm using the back of my veining tool there to separate out the rib cage from the rest of the body a little more. I'm making a collarbone section here, so I'm pressing down kind of like a triangle and then pressing that area flatter so the rib section sticks out more from the collarbone area. Putting some lines in with my knife just to make it look more muscly, more veiny, whatever you want to call it. And you just keep going with that effect is basically all you do. You want him kind of messy. You want his ribs really sticking out. You see how I keep accentuating it over and over till it really stands out pretty hard. I'm using my ball tool to make some of my indentations stand out even more, roughing them up a little bit. You don't want him symmetrical. You want him messy. You want him rough. And you want him skinny and bony. So keep working that angle, that effect. I'm using the back of my veining tool there to make some more lines for the ribs, how they kind of come together at the sternum there in the center, curving them around a little bit. And also for this guy, I didn't bother doing the back of him. You certainly can if you want to, and if you are going to, accent yourself a spine and just follow your ribs around onto the back of them, and you'll be fine. I didn't do it because I was a little short on time, and also because I didn't think anybody would be seeing the back of it. It was a cake for a kid, and he loved it, so I'm not too worried about it. All right, so yes, I'm just working more lines. As you can see, I am showing you tons of this just because I kept going over and over the same spots to make them really indented, really heavy. Make sure you bring your lines all the way to the center. You saw how I was rocking the knife over the sides. Make sure you get to the center on the top and the front and everything. If you want to take it around to the back, go right ahead. You're just going to follow the same idea, the same type of just lines and rolling your knife and your blades around just to make them really rough and skinny. Make sure you don't lose too much of that skinniness also. If anything, I probably could have made him even thinner. Now looking back on it, hindsight's 20/20 here. So all in all, though, not too bad. I ended up sticking a lollipop stick through him. This is an 8-inch stick. And I put my things in a block of styrofoam. I have a cake dummy that I use. So that's what he's sitting in now. Okay, now that we got the torso done, I'm going to do the pelvic. I'm going to call it the pelvic saddle. I don't know what it is on the demogorgon, but it looks like his pelvis is sticking up out of his bones too. So that's what I'm doing here. I just took a rectangle of white. Everything is white, by the way, because we're going to paint it later, and you'll see that too. And I'm roughing up the top. You saw I angled the two ends. And you don't want it, when you wrap it around him, you don't want it to meet in the front. You want it to just come up the sides. I'm curling around the top a little bit. I'm using my one veining tool to do that because it kind of bends out, like a pelvis does a little bit, like your hip bones do. It's not exactly a perfect science here. So I'm just roughing it up with my knife, like I was saying. I curve it around a little bit, and as you can see, it doesn't meet in the middle, and that's what you want. You don't want it to necessarily meet right in the middle. Okay, use some water, put it on, and make sure your top curves out a little bit, you see, kind of like the collar of a shirt maybe, that kind of effect, but don't fold it all the way. Okay, now I'm going to show you how I made his arms. I'm calling it a he. I'm going to have a long piece of gum paste, as you see here, and I rolled it out so I have a section at the top and then kind of a section in the middle. I am trying to emphasize the muscles of the biceps and triceps, like the upper part of the arm, deltoid, all those muscles. And then I'm also going to have it go thin underneath there into the joint of the elbow, and then flare out again a little bit for the for the lower arms muscles, for that group of muscles there. And then again it goes thin after that, where it'll go down into the wrist. And I'm using the back of my knife to kind of section off the muscles of the biceps there. And I'm using my blade to make some lines because it's very long and striated, the muscle group there. So I'm just trying to accentuate it as best I can. I don't know how, 100% accurate that is, but it's what I did, and it looks pretty darn cool, I gotta say, so why not, right? Go for it. I'm doing the same thing with the lower arm, the muscles there that come out of the elbow and go down toward the wrist, trying to section them off a little bit, make them stand out a little more, put some heavy lines in them, heavy lines around them to really accent them. And then when we go back and paint them, the paint is going to sit into those arms, grooves and everything that we just made, so it'll look a lot cooler too. So yeah, just stay with me on this one. I use a little piece of dried spaghetti to connect it into the shoulder there. And I'm just putting some more lines up into the shoulder too to kind of blend it together. I also have a crazy bend in the forearm there. It should have been more lower into the wrist, but I didn't do that. I put it up like the forearm has a major fracture or something in it. So, be careful how you bend your arms. Here's the other arm. I do the same exact thing. I have it long. I section out a big bulge at the top, then make a skinny area for the elbow, and then a little flare lower down for the second bunch of muscles in the arm, and then skinny again into the wrists. I'm going to use a little piece of dried spaghetti to stick it into the shoulder because otherwise it just falls right off. And if you noticed before too, I had to use a little bit of paper towel there to support the arms just until it set and hardened. All right, this little piece right here is not going to become Patrick Starfish, even though it kind of looks like that to me. It's going to be the neck and shoulder muscles, okay? And we're going to cover it mostly anyway with the head and the mouth part that looks like a big flower, so I'm not too worried about this. I just capped it off, kind of blend my lines into it, and then once you get it all blended in, don't make it come down too far over what's already there. Try to blend it in as nicely as you can. But again, you don't have to break the bank or yourself trying to make it perfect either, because it is going to get hidden. So once you get it done, pat yourself on the back for a good job, and we're moving on to the hands. All right. I'm starting out with a circle of white. As you see, I made it look kind of like a mitten. He's got 5 fingers. They're very long, so I just sectioned off each one, and I'm taking each one individually and rolling it between my fingers to make it very thin and long and pointy, because our Demogorgon has long and thin and pointy fingers. And I don't know if he has claws or not, but he doesn't really need them. He's got the giant, head of doom. So yeah, so just section them off, make them nice and long, roll them out, and I'm bending them pretty hard, as you see right there, right where they join the palm of the hand. If it's too long anywhere, just trim it off, with your knife, it's fine. I put some lines in it, again, to make it look more like muscles and tendons just underneath skin. And I'm bending each finger at the center joint and then kind of hyperextending the joint at the end of the finger. So his fingertips are going to be pressing down almost flat on the ground or the cake. He's got a crazy bend in his fingers, and then it joins into his hands. So this guy has like very elastic joints. It's part of the Demogorgonness. They're very flexible. A lot of people don't know that about them, but they are. All right, so I use a circle cutter to cut out the center, trimmed off the edges with my knife as you saw, use some water, and just wrap it around the base of your arm, and ba-bam, right? Like, there you go. How easy was that? It really wasn't bad. Okay, this is the head of our Demogorgon, the big flower mouth part. You're going to want 5 sections coming out of a circle, and you want them pretty straight. You're not actually making an actual flower, so it shouldn't be thin in the center and then flare out at the ends. So try to keep your lines straight. And I cut each end into a point because, let's face it, it does look like a daisy. And once you get your points in, then I'm going to try to balance out the sides a little bit, make them more even so it doesn't flare out quite as petal-like. Make them a little straighter and try to keep that point on the end, but still round off the little nips that you took off to make it pointy on the end. Perfectly clear and understandable, right? So basically, make yourself a flower is really what it comes down to. Just don't have it real skinny in the center. Try to keep your petals fat right in the middle where they connect. I'm making 2 impressions in the center, as you saw, with the circle cutters, because those are going to be where my lines of teeth are going to go. And then I'm using my knife to chop, 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 and make it all nice and hashed up in order to make it just look more textured. That's all it is for this. It's very muscular, lots of lean muscles, because, you know, they run a lot after people in the upside down. Okay, so yes, we've got our flower, we've got our lines, do it on the back as well, all around. And then to connect it to the head, or the neck, I should say, I just put a circle with a flat end on it. There you go. You can see what I'm doing here. Now kind of like a cyclops or something. Maybe an alien, something like that. I've been watching Twilight Zone lately, so lots of aliens. Add some water to the flat part there, and then stick that sucker on. Now, a little word of warning. I let my petal face dry flat. I realize now it would have been a cooler effect if it was coming forward more, like he was just starting to open his mouth. I didn't do that. Dry it how you want it to look, so be careful, okay? And I let it dry overnight before I attached it to the head. So this thing takes a few days to make. You can't rush it. Okay, moving on to painting. Now, I am using brown food coloring, a little bit of water, not using vodka or anything like that. I just used some water. And I am painting over the whole entire thing except the inside of the flower mouth part. So I went over the ribs, I'm going over all the muscles, I'm going to go over the fingers, going to get all up in it. So you don't want any white showing by the time we're done with all of this. For now, if you have a little white showing, it's fine, doesn't matter. We're going to go over it in a few colors. But for now, yeah, paint it brown. Brown is going to be a good base color. I guess you could have done a gray or something more like that if you wanted to be more realistic. I've seen a lot of different, pictures of it, and I guess it kind of depends on the lighting. But anyway, you can see I've painted the whole darn thing, even the sides of the petals there, in brown. And you can also see that it kind of sits inside those heavy lines that we made to kind of make them stand out more. I told you it would happen. See, you gotta trust me. All right, now I am using burgundy. Burgundy and a little bit of brown mixed with water. And I am highlighting all the giant muscle groups right here. I'm doing the arms, the chest, the pelvic thingy. I went over the back a little bit just so it didn't look stupid. And I very lightly kind of washed over some of the other brown, but heavy on the big muscle groups. The inside of his mouth, I am just doing straight up with the burgundy and the brown. And it looks pretty freaking cool, like, already, right? I really like how this thing turned out. And I said it in some other videos that every once in a while you're going to make a decoration and you're going to be like, I don't want to give it away because this thing looks so cool. And this was one of them. All right, now I'm going over this guy in black. I took some black food coloring and water, and I'm trying to go inside the cracks. So I'm really working it into the heavy lines that we made into his ribs. You see, I'm really going into those big ones. I'm tracing that little letter Y we made on his stomach earlier, and his sternum, his collarbone, that kind of thing. I'm doing a little bit inside of his mouth, and if it's messy and sloppy, it kind of doesn't matter because you can go over it with some more water, like that. I messed it up. Oh no, I took too much off. Now you can see some white through it. Just add some more red. You can fix it. It's not a big deal. Now, once you let this set for a little bit so he's not dripping wet, it's time to add his little teeth. And these are just little pearls of gum paste that I rolled into a teardrop shape. So it's nice and pointy on one end and a little rounded on the other, and I just started sticking. And he has kind of like a lamprey eel effect or a leech type of a mouth. So he's got rings of teeth in the center, and then his little petals have all the teeth that angle inward toward the mouth. So he's very effective with his teeth. So that's what I did in the center. I've got 5 big ones in the very center there. And those 2 rings that we made earlier, remember I pressed 2 circles into the center? I'm using those as the guides for the rings of teeth that are going to go around. So I'm jumping around here. You can see I'm adding teeth to the petals. I'm adding teeth to the center. And I kind of just did, worked in a circle. It's easier to work from the center out. That was experience right there, let me tell you, because you may have noticed I started with one petal and then jumped to the center and it sat there for a while. There you go. That's why. All right. So yes, super cool, right? Didn't want to give it away. But I'll come back to that because there's a story with that too. A few days it took me to make that darn thing. Okay, anyway, I'm griping now. These are just the light bulbs that I put on the cake. I rolled out some rainbow colored gum paste. I made a bunch of circles. I pinched one end, literally, that's all I did. So they turned into teardrop shapes. And I did not roll them, I just pinched them so they stayed flat. And then I took my really cool looking sunset rainbowy, not rainbow, but sunset kind of colored cake and then stuck on strings of lights, rows of lights with just a little bit of water. I had this cake in the fridge, so it was nice and cold, so I had to use water to make the gum paste stick to it. Once you get your rows on, use some black icing, make a line and a ball, line and a ball, line and a ball, line and a ball, and just keep doing that all the way around and you've got your strings of Christmas lights. See that? Isn't that cool? Very cute, very effective. Once you get your rows, I had to do 3 rows because the person wanted Happy Birthday Dominic on it. If it's just Happy Birthday, make 2 rows. If it's, do whatever you want. This is just what I did. I will say though, if you are going to do this, make sure you leave yourself space between those letters or between your light bulbs. Otherwise, it's not going to line up with your letters because your letters have to be a pretty decent size or it just won't look right. And if you are going to write your letters, it doesn't have to be nice and neat. This is not a nice and neat cake, so it's pretty nice and easy, too, to do the lettering for this one. So I struggle with lettering. I really don't like lettering on cakes, honestly. I feel like it sometimes can take away from the look. This, however, fits in perfectly. See that? Doesn't that look lovely? And now I've got a garbage cake plate, which it was garbage, literally. I hate it. It didn't have a coating on the top. I thought it would be okay, but it did not. So anytime icing touched it, it soaked in. It made me insane. So to hide it, I am covering it up with black icing and then smoothing it with a spatula to make it just look messy and oozy. And yeah, right? Turned out pretty good. You'd never know it was a garbage cake plate that I hate and I'll never buy again. So I took a piece of black gum paste, rolled it flat in kind of a messy pattern as you see here. Stick it on top of my cake just so he has someplace nice and clean to sit because I didn't want to mess him up because I liked him too much. And stick him down on top of the cake and ba-bam, there you go. Like how freaking cool is that? And coming back to my Demogorgon, all those days of work, all those teeth that took me literally hours to put in, the woman sent me a picture of the kid eating the head. Just took it off the cake and bit it and I wanted to cry. He was disrespecting my art. Ugh! Anyway. Please check out my other videos. Please like and subscribe. And as always, guys, thank you for watching Caketastic Cakes.